Welcome to Right on the Mark with your host, Mark Young. Today I have a special guest, my father-in-law, Tom, also known as Doc. I love to call him Doc just because everybody else calls him Doc. I feel privileged to call him Doc, and he lets me, so I'm really proud of that. So welcome, Doc. Say hello.
Mark, really enjoyed that introduction there.
Yeah,
I've
sure.
enjoyed your other podcast, so I just hope this is just as good as the other ones.
Of course it will be. You're on it. Why not? That's great.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I understand that you go way back and you know a lot about the Mon Valley. You know, I do a lot of podcasts about the Mon Valley because I grew up in the Mon Valley, but the decades I grew up in is a lot different than yours. I grew up in the 70s and 80s and so on. When you grew up, times were a little different. I know that for a fact. I mean, I heard a lot of stories from you, and I still hear stories from you. They're all good.
And
Don't
you
worry.
will continue
Yeah,
your story.
I'm sure, but the ones that fascinate me the most are the ones I've never heard before. So my understanding is you grew up in Charleroi. You might have married somebody in Stockdale, but I think you grew up in Charleroi, so that's where it all started, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Charleroi, Mark, and went to school in Charleroi. First of all, I attended parochial school. I attended first grade in public school. And then my parents enrolled me in parochial school after that. So from that time on until eighth grade, I went to St. Cyril's and Methodius in Charleroi.
Oh,
And as a matter of fact, I lived right across the street at one time from one of the schools that was Second Street Elementary School, which is a public school. But I walked from there to 10th Street in Charleroi every day to go to school.
how far was that?
It was about 10 blocks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So we're talking
And
about a half a mile.
yeah, we're talking about a half a mile.
Wow.
And of course, they're all sidewalks. It was good
Yeah.
that way. But for my first 8 years, in schooling, I went to St. Cyril's and Methodius, walked every day in rain, snow, sleet, the whole thing, like the postman.
Yeah.
It didn't make any difference. We went to school. I missed very little school and, walked across every street going down to school.
Hey, that sounds a
And
lot like me. I mean, I went to Catholic school up until eighth grade, and
yeah,
I missed very very little school.
yeah.
You
But I
know.
think you went by bus, didn't you?
Yeah. We didn't have horse and buggy back then.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
we had buses
yeah.
back then. In
You had a
fact,
bus to
Butch,
take you.
was it Butch? No, Butch. Who the bus driver? Kessler.
Kessler, yeah, it
Butch.
was,
Was
yeah,
it Butch?
George.
George Kessler. Yeah,
They maybe
yeah,
call him Butch, but
yeah.
yeah, it was George Kessler. But your superintendent had something to do with that to make sure he had a ride to school.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My superintendent was
Me.
the good Dr. Wilkinson.
Yeah.
That's a story on its own. That's another time for another podcast. But Charleroi sounds great to me.
Yeah, Charleroi is a nice town to grow up in. There was no question about it. We lived, like I said, at one time we lived 10 blocks away. And I'd walk to school. And then, but one of the things I thought about as far as the podcast today, and we had talked about this on a number of occasions, was the idea that I worked when I was a youngster. And the thought came to me the other day. I was in a bank and I was talking to the teller, and I asked him. I said, a young fellow, he's probably in his maybe mid 30s. I said to him, "How's your day going?" "Fine." I said, "What time are you done?" And I said, he said 7 o'clock. And I said, they do have child labor laws today. And he laughed, of course, just like you did. And I said, then I thought of it, that might be a good thing to talk about, because you and I had talked about when I was a youngster. Sometimes it's hard to believe, but I began to work when I was about 10 years old. And I worked at that time at the local theater. It was called the State Theater.
What city was that in?
In Charleroi.
Oh, okay.
And I only lived about probably half a block or a little more than half a block away. So my mother and dad had no problem with me going to work at the theater. And but I'd walk up and I was an usher, and I'd show people to their seats at 10 years old. And but it was fun. I enjoyed it. Had a very excellent manager who really took care of me during that period of time.
I do have to ask you.
Sure.
How much did you make?
I think if I was making maybe a dollar a day, something like that.
Dollar
maybe.
a day, folks.
Yeah, that's all.
Dollar a day.
And he really, but it wasn't the idea of the pay. I just enjoyed getting out and doing the work
Right.
and working with people. But there was, and people talk about the popcorn machines. I even, at that age, 10, 11 years old, I actually helped fill the popcorn machines. I'd bring bags of popcorn from the storage area already popped and put it in the machine.
Oh, so it didn't pop it there?
No, they didn't pop it there.
Oh.
They got it popped in a bag, and I'd put it in the machine. And then I would, of course, when ushering, I would stand in the back of the people, and I had a flashlight.
Yeah.
And through the theater lights would go down, and then I would walk people to their seats and show them to a seat.
Anyone famous or anyone that might be of mentioning?
No,
No,
really.
no, just the
Not
locals.
in Charleroi,
Oh, okay.
But I do have a little incident that I'll tell you about in a few minutes. But I worked at the theater, and at that time they had marquees above the theater, and I would go out and there'd be an older boy, probably about 17 or 18 years old. We'd have to change the letters in the marquee, and every time there's a theater change or a movie change, we'd have to go out and change those. So one night I'm out there, it was night, dark, and the fellow was up on the ladder, and he did something he should not have done. He said, "Here, I'll just throw these down to you." There are plastic letters, about a foot high,
Yeah.
He threw one down, and when it came down, it hit me right in the mouth.
Oh.
Split my lip, and the manager fired the guy. He said, he was older than me, and he said he should not have been doing that, so he let him go.
Oh, I could believe it. Those are probably paper thin.
They were paper thin,
Yeah.
and there was, so the way it came down, it went right through my hands.
Oh.
And of course, he blamed the other guy. And then Lou was he was my manager, Lou. He was a great guy. He would, when I'd go sometimes go to work, he'd say, "Come on, let's go have dinner, and let's go have lunch." So we would go up to the local Charleroi Hotel, it was called, and have lunch or dinner. It was later in the afternoon, actually after I came home from school. And he'd say, "Come on, let's go up and have dinner." So we would go up, and Lou would buy my dinner. And I remember one time in particular, he said, "What would you like to have?" And I said, "Well, give me mashed potatoes and French fries." And he said,
I know someone like that.
I said, "Mashed potatoes and French fries." He says, "You sure that's all you want?" "That's all, mashed potatoes and French fries." So that was my dinner that night. I had mashed potatoes and French fries. So we went back, and then I worked that night. And there were, if I remember at that time, there were 4 movies in Charleroi, 4 theaters.
Oh, wow.
The 4 theaters.
I remember the Coil.
The Coil was there. The State Theater where I worked.
I do remember the State.
The Palace Theater.
Don't
And
remember.
they had another one on Fallonfield Avenue. It's called the Menlo.
Wow. So things were booming back then?
Oh, yeah. There were 4 theaters. I mean, Charleroi was unbelievable.
The population must have been.
It was Saturday nights. We could get into that a little later on, but Saturday nights, the stores were all open. People would be on the street. You would have to really fight your way down the street to get to any of the stores.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was. It was booming.
Wow. I mean, I remember Charleroi being known for like Schuleroi.
Exactly.
Charleroi had a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you needed a suit, you went to Charleroi. You needed shoes, you went to Charleroi.
Right.
Yeah. You wanted to buy furniture, you go to, you went to Monessen a little bit too for Stearns. But Charleroi had everything. I mean, they had the sidewalks. They had at Christmas time, didn't they had the decorations up?
Lights across the street.
Oh, the
I can always
parade.
remember they were like Christmas tree bulbs,
Yeah. It was all. You always went to Charleroi for something. I remember Fisher Big Wheel, Monkey Ward's we used to go to.
Right, Monkey Ward's.
Yeah. Oh my, was that there when you were growing up?
Oh yeah. Oh sure.
Oh, WESA, the radio station was there.
Yeah, now that you brought that up, I wasn't going to say anything about that. But at the time I was working in Charleroi, I went up to the theater. They had a daytime program. And what they would do is they invite young people to come in and be on the radio. And I walked up there and I went into the theater. It was down near the river at that time. And I went in and they had a program. I can't remember the gentleman's name. But what would happen is they'd bring you on, introduce you to the public, and then you'd spin a dollar bill, a silver dollar. And you hear that silver dollar go, and drop. And I think we had to call somebody's name or something. But then I got a silver dollar for being on radio.
Oh.
Yeah, WSA.
Oh, wow. If
Yeah.
I remember, that was back, I think that was back where Fisher, there was a ball field back there
That's
too.
exactly right. That's where it was.
Yeah.
WSA was back there. George Linderman. Linderman was the broadcaster's last name. Charlie Linderman, whatever.
Yeah.
Linderman. But I was on radio at that time too.
Yeah, and that was
I
one of the
couldn't
older
be any
ones.
more than 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah, and WSA was probably one of the first ones in the area that might have been the only one in the area.
Yeah, there was some down in McKee. Of course, Pittsburgh had radio stations too, but I think probably the closest one to that may have been McKee Sport. I think had one.
Yeah.
But WSA was a popular radio station.
Well, I didn't mean to get you off track, but I mean, you worked at the theater. You had a lot of other odd jobs too, along with that. Plus, you went to school.
Yeah.
My understanding is your dad had a shop or had a garage.
Right.
A car garage.
He had a service station in Charlotte.
Service station.
And in fact, it was really interesting because at the time my dad was working with someone who I had no idea was going to happen, became my uncle through marriage. He was an uncle to my wife. His name was Al Mollis, and he and my dad worked in a service station together.
Oh.
That's coincidence, but that's what happened.
Wow.
But anyway, that's where I lived in. I lived in an area called it was actually 7th Street on McCain Avenue. It was a main street going through Charleroi.
Yeah.
But I'd walk through there from my house to the theater, walk back in at night, no problem. Just walk by myself.
Yeah, well,
And,
McCain was a well-known street. Well,
oh,
it
yeah.
still is a well-known
yeah.
street.
Well, yeah, if you can say that. McCain and Fallowfield were the two main streets.
Yeah.
And I can always remember a story that I was told when I was a youngster that there was the chief of police in Charleroi. At that time, there was horses going along the street. Okay.
I can't believe that. I'll take your word for it.
Well, this was a little bit before my time.
Oh, okay.
There was horses on the street, and what happened was there was a horse that died on Fallowfield Avenue, just dropped dead on that. So what the chief of police did was to have him move. The horse moved from Fallowfield Avenue to McCain Avenue because he didn't know how to spell Fallowfield.
That's pretty good, Doc. That's pretty funny.
That was, I don't know if the story is true, but they always tell that story, that he did not know how to spell Fallowfield. Well, after that, we moved up the street and moved to 2nd Street. And both, you have to understand, both places where I lived when I was a youngster were apartment buildings. For instance, I lived on the 3rd floor of an apartment building.
So your family lived there, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
right on McCain Avenue.
Oh.
Then we moved to 2nd Street in Charleroi, and it was it's still an apartment building. And at that time, so we were not too far away from a bowling alley. So I was probably about 12 years old.
I think I know where you're going with this. You worked at the bowling alley.
Right, I worked at the bowling alley. And at that time, some people don't remember this, but we're all 10 pins now. If you go to bowl, you bowl 10 pins.
Yeah.
Well, when I used to set pins, we used duck pins. They were called duck pins.
I do remember that.
They were little pins with a little rubber thing around the end.
In the small balls.
Right, in smaller balls, and you held it in your hand.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked there, and what I was able to do was go from the bowling alley to my house to go across the school playground to go to my house.
Yeah.
So all I had to do was walk across the playground, go into the bowling alley, and set up pins. And at that time, I set up pins, and I think, I know your question is going to be, how much you get paid? I believe at that time it was 10 cents a line.
10 cents a line? I got to strum that.
Yeah.
Wow.
10 cents a line. So if you had 4 bowlers on a team, so each line, so you made 40 cents for each team to bowl. So by the night, you probably end up with, $5 maybe at that most.
Yeah. Well, hey, it kept you busy. It kept you out of trouble, right?
Kept me out of trouble.
Yep. So you lived in this apartment, your mom, your dad, and a brother, right? Older brother?
Yes. No, younger.
Younger brother.
Yeah.
Younger brother. All right,
my
so
brother Chuck was 8 years younger than myself. But then when he was born, we lived on 7th Street when he was born, but we moved to 12th Street. 2nd Street. We would walk to school together from 2nd Street down to 10th Street to St. Cyril's and Methodius School. Walk down the street. rain, snow, sleet.
No buses.
No buses
Yeah.
because we had sidewalks. Okay, so
Right.
we were able to walk down
Right.
the
What do you
sidewalk.
think what was your class size back then?
Well, the class sizes were small. Again, as you heard in a prior broadcast or podcast,
Right.
there were 2 classes in each room.
Right.
So we had like first and second grade, 7th, 8th, all together. And so we moved to Second Street. So I started to work at a bowling alley. Worked there at night. Of course, that's when the leagues were always held at night.
Yeah.
So we worked there. And I'd walk home at night, and that was it. So I spent time working in a bowling alley.
Yeah.
But there was so we, like I said, we would walk to school every day. But one time, just thought came to mind. We were going to walk. We walked to school, and walking back from school. Of course, we went to school and walked back home.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
10 blocks there, 10 blocks. And so we're coming home one day, and I stopped to talk to somebody, and all of a sudden, my little brother, who was probably in that time was probably in first grade, second grade, of course, I was in charge of him.
Yeah.
He disappeared on me. I looked all over the place for him, and I could not find him.
And you probably knew you couldn't go home without him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I searched the area, and so I got home. I said to my mother, I said, "Guess what? And guess who I saw in the house? My
Your brother. Oh.
He just went home himself." So that was it. But again, I kept talking about how we worked in those days. Interesting thing happened. I was probably 13 years old, just prior to my going away to school. Talk about that if you want. But 13 years old, I was working in a place called, it still exists to this day, some people might remember the name, Model Dry Cleaners.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, my Model Dry Cleaner was just on the corner from where we lived. So I'd walk up, and I was working at the Model Dry Cleaners. And what I would do there, I had an interesting job. The wire hangers that you have
Yeah.
a little ball, the thing on it. Well, I was responsible for putting those little things on so your pants wouldn't wrinkle.
Oh.
That was one of my jobs there.
Yeah.
And then I had another job too. It was called cuff cleaning. So I had a machine, men's suit pants. I put down in there would be brushes, and it would clean out the cuffs. Okay.
Yeah.
Put them down
I
in
wonder
there.
if they have that now.
I'm not sure. The cuffs get awfully dirty.
Next time we go to John Eagle, you're gonna have to ask that the dry
Did you
cleaner.
have those cuff cleaners? So I would do that too. Then interesting thing happened was the workers and the Model Dry Cleaner went on strike.
Oh.
So what the owners taught me how to do was to press shirts. So I was using the machine.
I thought you were going to say they were going to show you how to pick it.
Well, that's going to be part of the story. So I would press shirts, and you can imagine steam, the steam. I press these shirts and plus these sleeves and cuffs. Well, they went on strike, as I said, and when I looked out the window, they were the workers walking up and down the street with their signs, their strike signs.
Oh.
So, but the way I got in and out of the building was through a back way. So I had to climb down over the steps down, and I'd go home, and I'd eat dinner.
Yeah.
I'd go back the next day after school. I'd go back to work, clean back up over because they were still on strike. Back in, and I would pressing shirts.
Yeah. Oh my. So when did you have time to study?
Very little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with a name like Doc, I'm thinking you got pretty far in life. So
elementary school, yeah. But so I would go. So one night I came home, and I was sitting around having dinner, and my dad says to me, "Are you still working at the cleaners?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you know that they're on strike?" And I said, "Yeah, I know that they're on strike. Do you know what can happen to you if they find out that you're working and taking their jobs?" He said, "You might be in trouble. I don't want you to go anymore. You're done." So I said, "Well, I'm going to disobey my dad." So so that was it. So I didn't go back to work. So the next night, I went to a union meeting where they were discussing the. So my dad changed me from one to the other. So the next thing you know, I was going to a
union guy.
And that meeting was at the 13th Street in Charlevoix. Everything was on a straight street. So the meeting was at the roller rink in Charlevoix. 13th Street, you might remember where that was.
No.
There was a 13th Street. There was a bus garage down there and so forth, trolley garage. And there they had a roller rink. and that's where the meeting was.
Yeah.
So I sat during union meeting, 13 years of age,
You weren't even probably legal to be in
No,
that meeting.
well, the thing is, that's how this whole thing started. We didn't have child labor laws.
Yeah.
You could work when you were 10. You could work when you were 11.
You could attend meetings.
Yeah, you could attend a union meeting at 13. Yeah, but anyway, I attended a meeting, and of course, I left them soon after that. And having those jobs, I turned around. And by the way, it's something I don't think I ever told you. I went out for the football team when I was in high school. It was
Charleroi High School.
Charleroi High School.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out. It was 10th grade. Yeah, and but then I decided to go away to school, so that's when I went out to Canton, Ohio, and entered the seminary with the Precious Blood in Canton. And you've been there.
Oh yeah.
In fact, your brother was out that day.
Oh yeah.
And we saw where it was.
I remember that vividly. We went into your locker room.
Yeah.
We took a walk around the parking lot.
Right. And that's what I was going to say too, because I lead into that part of the story. I turned around and went out to school, 13 years of age. Of course, that was in Canton, Ohio, and my parents lived in Charleroi.
Yeah.
So I didn't see my parents but once a month while I was out there at school.
Right.
So when I went out there to school, you mentioned something. I think it was mentioned that how the kids did all the work and so forth. Well, we had gangs of workers, kids, young men, 13, 14, 15 years old, who cleaned the restrooms, cleaned the halls, cleaned the classrooms, cleaned all that.
Yeah.
We did all that because they had no janitors.
No custodians. Yeah.
No, they had none of that.
Yeah.
So the students did all the work. So anyway, when I started working out there in that job, I was head of a gang, 14 years old. I was the head of the labor gang that went out and worked.
Yeah.
And I had about 4 or 5 guys working for me. So it was my job to make sure they had jobs. And I don't know if you remember the story, Oliver Twist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. There was a character in Oliver Twist called Fagin. Well, Fagin was the head of the kids that did the work.
Oh,
okay?
Don't tell me.
Guess what?
You're Fagin.
I'm Fagin. Yeah.
That's too funny.
The kids, all the student told me. But that was a tremendous experience.
Oh, I believe
because I went out there, like I said, saw my parents only once a month. My grandparents would come out, and I had an aunt that lived in Salem, Ohio.
Yeah.
So they'd come out Salem, and then from Salem they would go to Canton.
And how many years were you there?
2
years.
And but they would come out and visit me once a month, and bring cookies and cakes and so forth,
Right.
and we'd enjoy the day together.
Right.
But I played football, basketball, and baseball, all 3 sports at the school.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
To take a step back, I know I've heard stories about this. Your father had a garage. He worked there. That was his, that was his blood, sweat, and tears. That was his bread and butter there. I mean, he took care of your family and all that.
Yeah.
And you worked there, right? And I always enjoyed the stories of how he'd have you go out and give the full service.
Yeah.
Make sure you get the windows, get the gas. Make sure you pump the gas. I'm always curious to see if you ever ran into anyone famous to come passing through.
Well, not really, but I was going to get to that point. But I spent the 2 years at Brennerdale.
Yeah.
And when I came back.
Oh, so this was after.
When I came back from Brennerdale.
Yeah.
When I was like 16 years old.
That's when you worked it, though.
That's when
I thought it was beforehand.
No, it was after that. 16 years old when I came back.
Okay.
But I worked in my dad's service station at 16, 17 years old, my junior and senior year. That's when I met my wife when I was a junior.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So I worked in the service station junior year, senior year, and then I also worked while I went to college.
So when you went to that school in Ohio, those 2 years counted towards your high school.
Right.
You didn't have to start over.
That was my 10th and 11th grade.
Okay, good.
Okay. 9th and 10th grade, 11th grade, I came back.
I didn't know if you had to repeat those.
So when I came back to Charleroi, I was actually in 11th grade.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that was my question. I didn't know if you had to repeat those grades or not.
No.
Luckily, you did.
I was able to go into 11th grade.
Yeah.
And of course, the the curriculum at the school, at the Brennerdale Seminary, was, I had to say, was even more stringent than what the high school was, because I was taking Latin. I took 2 years of Latin in ninth and 10th grade out there with
Oh,
all the other
I believe
subjects.
that. Yeah,
Sure.
the Catholic school system was always harder than the public school.
Yeah, that's right. But I forgot to mention too that when I was there at the seminary, I was even taking care of one of the priest's rooms. I had to make sure that his bed was made, his clothes were all put away,
Oh
and
yeah.
everything during that time
Yeah.
too. So
Oh my.
yeah,
I remember some of that. I mean, I remember some of these stories you're telling, but something that hit me, or struck me whenever we were going there, was just trying to get through the gate to get in.
oh yeah,
You know, I was driving, you were sitting over here in the passenger seat saying, "Hey, I went to school here 35 years
that's
ago. We
right.
just want to take
Yeah,
a loop around and just go in and just meet and see
right.
if you recognize."
If you remember when we came through, there was a pond there. Okay, and I don't know if you remember this or
I don't
not,
remember that.
but that pond would freeze over every
Yeah.
winter. So we played hockey on that pond.
Oh,
And guess what position I always got?
goalie.
Goalie,
Oh,
because I didn't know how to skate.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they put me in goalie, and these kids from Minnesota and Michigan, and all, they were born with skates
Northern
on.
Ohio,
Yeah, they
close.
were
Oh,
born
yeah,
with skates
yeah.
on their feet.
Right.
So they would be playing against us. So you never saw a guy duck as much as they could. And the best part about it is we had a couple priests that played with us, and they were excellent
Oh, yeah,
hockey players.
yeah. Wow.
So anyway, then I came back, and that's when I started working the service station. But as far as famous people coming through, I don't think there was anybody really
No,
that was
I
famous.
was just curious
But
about
you
that.
mentioned about my dad, how strict he was.
Yeah.
Okay, whenever a car pulled in, I had to wipe the windshield,
Oh, yeah.
fill the gas. At that time, we didn't have the automatic thing, so I had to pump the gas,
Yeah.
fill the car up. Then a guy wanted his oil change checked, so I had to check his oil,
Oh, yeah.
wipe his windshield, and I'd come in sometimes, and my dad would say, "Did you get that windshield?"
Yeah. You did the other 9 things, but did you
Right.
get the
Did you
windshield?
get the
Yeah,
windshield?
get the
So I had to go
windshield.
back out, take the guy's change out, and
Yeah.
then do his windshield.
That's something unheard of now. I mean, people go in and out. You know, this is a hurry up world we live in now.
Yeah.
You want in, you want out. Windshield doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just in and out. That's all they want now is fast
Yeah.
service.
And my wife once said to me, "You know, when I met you, you were pumping gas. When we're married for 60 years, you're still pumping gas."
Yeah, nothing's changed. How true it is. How true it is. But yeah, I'm sure things have changed back then. I think I remember your oldest boy, Tommy Joe. He has the actual your father's sign in his garage, right?
Yeah. It was Ray Wilkinson.
Yeah, that's it.
garage.
Ray
Yeah.
Wilkinson garage. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I don't know where he got it from. I guess he got
He
it
got
from.
it off the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got it off the building. The guy gave it to him, I think.
Oh,
Pretty
okay.
sure. And but he has it hanging in his garage.
Yeah, I remember that. I just
Yeah.
didn't know the whole story behind it,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's some good information because back in, I mean, there was plenty of service stations.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I remember,
Well-
you know, you'd stop and get gas. You'd only get $3 or $4 worth. You know, that's all you had. You never filled it. Like now, we can go fill up our tank each time because we can't be bothered stopping again. Back then, you stopped every 2 days for $3 or $4 worth.
Yeah, when I was going to college, my dad gave me a little bit more responsibility. I was actually closing the station. My
Okay.
dad would go home, and I would close the station up and go home. But it was interesting too that the guys that worked in the mill. This is, some people wouldn't like to hear this story now, but some of the guys, they'd run up a bill on their gas. My dad was good for that. He went,
Like a
in fact,
tab.
my poor father died. People owing him a lot of money because he ran a tab.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what would happen is the gas was so cheap that the guy would have a $7, $8 bill for the week, or
Right.
maybe even 2 weeks, and he'd come in and he'd say, "I'd like to pay the bill, my bill." Okay, fine. Well, he would pay the bill, and he'd say, "Okay, to give you an example, the bill was $7.
Okay.
They didn't have much more at that time."
Yeah.
He'd say, "Make it for 10." So I'd say, "Okay." So I'd give him a slip. He paid $10. Well, his bill was actually $7. So actually, when he went home with the slip, told his wife, "Gas cost me $7." Well, he was making $3 on the side.
Oh.
You understand that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would say,
Oh.
make it for 10. So I gave him a slip, 7, and he showed his dealer's
Yeah,
license.
I thought you were going to tell me I'm going to pay my tab up, but then I need $7 more to fill up.
And then what he would do is go over to Karen's bar and get.
Oh wow! Well, back then, I mean, you had service stations, you had bars. I mean, Sokol. I don't know if you had you had to have clubs back
Oh
in
yeah,
Charleroi.
yeah. There's the Sokol Club. You had the
I'm sure you
then
had
you
all
had,
the ethnic.
yeah, they had Sokol, and they had the Dutch Club.
Yeah,
Dutch Club, which was German.
yeah,
It
yeah.
but they called it the Dutch Club. And they
Right.
had the Sokol Club. Then you had a lot of independent bars like the Roscoe Hotel and Central Bar and Karen's. Besides churches and bars, they outnumbered everything else in the town.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, yeah. I
The
mean,
churches
churches
you
were
had,
big back
you
then.
had Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist. They were all.
Right, right. I mean,
But it was interesting too because the guys would come. You talked about the number of service stations. My dad owned a service station right next door to another service station.
yeah,
Now, you would think, why they build one, put one here, put one right next door, and they got along. These two businessmen got along so well together. It's unbelievable. Of course, the guy next to him, his name was Downs, and he sold. Not only did he sell gas, which was very little, but he did a lot of auto work,
yeah.
like motor work and so
Oil
forth.
change stuff.
And no, we did service when I worked at the service station. We did oil change there too.
Oh, okay.
But my dad sold more gas,
Oh, okay.
so he was making more on gas than what Sam was making.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but you would unbelievable. Two service stations could be right next door to one another and get along so well.
Yeah, well, I see a lot of gas stations now. I mean, I'll see a gas station right next door. There's another gas station. There's another gas station. I will tell you this real quick. I worked for Crossroads Food Mart back in the 80s and just for a couple years. And I remember them asking me, hey, Mark, can you drive around and just write down some of the gas prices? Because we want to change our gas prices. So that was one of my favorite times of the day was take a couple hours off, drive around, find out what the other gas is and bring it back to my boss and go, you know what? We're 3 cents over. We need to bring it down. And be like,
Right,
oh,
that's
great.
right.
Nowadays I could check my phone, but
Right.
back then you had to get out
Right.
and drive around. I always thought that was
Yeah.
funny, but
Yeah.
gas varies so often everywhere you go now. I mean,
There was such
it's
a thing,
different.
and you hit upon it because there was such a thing as gas wars, and you hit upon it because what would happen is if somebody was like 2 cents or 3 cents over, they would reduce it 3 more cents or 4. So your gas was lower here. Next thing you know, somebody else would be bringing their
Well, you
gas
remember
down.
sometimes it'd be changed every day.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they change it every day.
That's right.
And back in the day, I mean, it wasn't electronic. I'd have to get this long pole,
And
you
put
know,
this
with
on it.
suction cups.
That's right.
And just to take it down for 2 cents. I'm
That's right.
up there,
Yeah.
well, it was probably early in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm changing the gas price up
Yeah.
there.
Can you imagine one of those things dropping off and hitting your mouth?
No, I can't. That's something else. Wow. So that was a lot back then. I mean, you had a lot of like Mon Valley people going from city to city shopping and getting gas at different places. I mean, there was a lot of just fast food restaurants back then.
Yeah.
I remember Winkies down on 88, which I don't even think they're in business anymore. But I remember coming to Charleroi just to go to Winkies or just to go to KFC.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. There was a golf station in Charleroi, which golf was all over the country, but there just happened to be one in Charleroi. The next one was probably 2 states over.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot to be said for that type of industry.
You had an interesting point there because when I grew up, we didn't have fast foods. We did not have fast foods.
Yeah.
There was no fast food. There was no McDonald's or Winkies or anything. There was nothing.
Yeah.
All you had was these little places. Like there was one place where my wife and I liked to go. It was called Winky's Dairy Bar. Yeah, we get a foot long hot dog and milkshake and so forth. And they had car service. They bring
car hop service. Yeah.
And but that was it was not too far away from us. But we didn't have making McDonald's.
Yeah,
And Winkies
I remember growing up as a kid in the 70s, and we went out very rarely to get something. But if we did, we'd go to, I'd say, North Belvoir, or just, I don't know if it was North or whatever Bell Vernon, but there was a dog house.
Yeah,
There was a restaurant, a
yeah,
dog house. You
yeah.
went
You
there.
had something like that, but you didn't have any McDonald's or
No,
Wendy's,
no, no,
nothing
no. You
like
had
that.
something like that, but that was a
Yeah.
big night. That
Oh
was
yeah,
maybe once a month.
yeah,
You know, you didn't go there every day.
yeah,
You know, so you
yeah.
had stuff like that. There was, a drive-in theater there.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of, well, there was a
And
lot of,
Super
yeah,
71.
Super 71 was there. Well, Walmart's there now,
Yeah,
but yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you had that back in the day. I mean,
yeah,
some of the stores up there, that place was booming too. I mean, Bell Vernon, you had Heels, you had Grant's,
yeah.
you had that, the Doghouse place, you had the Crampos, you had the Birch Street. There's a lot of different places up there. I mean, Kelly and Cone, the TV place. Now you have big box stores that sells
Right,
TVs.
exactly.
You know, they're going out of business, and the little guy can't even make it
Yeah.
nowadays.
But you mentioned about Super 71 drive-in, and you may not remember this, but you could see the screen from Interstate 70, and you're
I
coming
believe it. I can
down.
believe it.
People will be pulling off the road side of the road to watch the movie in the drive-in.
Yeah, I believe
It was
that.
right there. You know, you could see the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Oh,
Well,
boy.
it's hard to hide those big screens back
That's
then.
right.
It's always hard to hide it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a few. There was a Hilltop one up by. Was that Carroll Township, on top of the hill?
Right. Yep. There's a nursing home up there now.
Yeah, I remember that one was up there. But man,
Yeah, there was one up in there was Fikes up in Bronzeville too.
that might still be there.
Yeah,
I think I drove
think it
past
is.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think our son said not too long ago he had taken his family up to see.
Yeah, I know we went to the one up, I think Moon. There's a couple up by the airport.
Yeah.
Moon, we went there. That was a
Right.
few years ago. But yeah, it's very nostalgic to go there. In fact, my youngest son, Logan, said, what's a drive-in? I thought that was funny. So we took him to the first drive-in. And of course, we had to bring the chairs in a cooler, and I fell asleep. But
Sure.
hey, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, right.
But he got a kick out of
You
it.
try to get the car as full of people as you could.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Put them in the trunk. Put them somewhere to hide them because I think you paid per carload, right?
Yeah,
it
you
wasn't
paid
per person. You
right.
paid per carload.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Yeah. And going back a little bit to then I left off with talking about working in a service station.
Yeah.
But when I started university, called at that time, it's California State Teachers College, I worked every night.
Yeah.
And during the time, yep.
Oh
So
yeah. I mean that
worked all the way through college. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't stop there. I mean, it wasn't like you went to school and stopped working.
Yeah.
I mean, you were always looking for ways to work.
Then I tried to play baseball during that time too.
Yeah. Well,
Didn't
hey.
work out very well. Some people get the chance to work out with Cincinnati Reds. Was that somebody in your family?
Yeah. There's, yeah. I mean, back then there was a lot of I want to say farm teams. You had Brooklyn Dodgers farm team. You had the Pirates farm team. You had the Reds farm team. So you could always work your way up.
Sure.
If you can make it to the big leagues, why not? If you didn't, my dad was one of them. A classic example. He quit the mill to have a tryout with a couple like a Brooklyn Dodgers team, the farm league, or he went to Tennessee and tried to do things. But the problem was when he came back, his job wasn't there. So that's when he was like, well, I got to start from the beginning again.
That's
and
right.
then he'd do that.
That's
And
right.
then he's like, well, there's a position over here when I'm going to try out
Yeah.
for there. That didn't work out. He'd come back.
You
So
didn't have tenure in your job.
Oh,
that's
no.
for sure.
No, for
It was a
sure.
risk. Took a
Yeah,
risk.
for sure. But then my dad did, he worked at Lee Norris in Charlotte.
Oh yeah,
You probably know
remember
where that is.
Yeah, oh yeah. Right along-
Was that Shop and Save or Foodland? It was
Yeah,
nearby.
that's right there. That's where remember I mentioned earlier on that I went down there for that union meeting. It was down close to where your dad that day.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, across the street from Lee Norris or across the street from Bartolotta's or Drive, whatever that grocery store was, they used to sell these like planters. I want to say like swan, like white swans or like water, like bird baths and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know what the name of it was, but I remember going there as a kid and picking it out for our house, where we lived in Menneson, and that struck out to me.
You didn't have to put 8 pounds of concrete in the bottom.
No, no. Although I did do that, so we'll see how that works out.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it was great talking to you, Doc.
Well,
These stories never get old, I'll
right.
tell you, and I know you got many more.
Oh
I
yeah,
know you
get
got
more.
many more.
If you want to
Well,
share a few more, I'll be glad to talk to you.
absolutely,
It's been
absolutely.
enjoyable. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks
And
for coming on the show.
thank you. You're welcome, and I enjoy all of your shows.
Thank you very much. Well, that about wraps it up for Right on the Mark with your host, Mark Young. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell. See you next time.